So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second webinar of the Empower Leadership Program. As you might know, we started with this series last week, and today we have a new session that will focus on data-driven energy communities. So before we start with the content, I'm gonna give you some housekeeping rules. Please, everyone know that we are recording this session right now, and then during the webinar, you can feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and we will read these questions out loud after each speaker's intervention. And after the webinar, you will all receive an email today or tomorrow with all the relevant material, like the slides or the recording of the session. And now, before we start, I would like to ask all of you to go to Slido, please, for a little warm-up. You can access slido.com with this code or scan the QR code. And let me share the screen for the results. 1 second. Let me know if you can see this. Can you all see the slide? I think so. Okay, people are coming in. So again, you can scan the QR code, and please let us know if you attended the first session of the Empower Leadership Program last week. Did you attend? You couldn't attend? You didn't even know there was a session? Please let us know. We're interested to know. I'm very happy to see that most people so far attended the first session. But again, if you couldn't go and you are interested in knowing about digital tools for energy communities, you can check the recording of the previous session. We will also send it after this webinar to all of you. Okay, people are still slowly coming in. So again, for our warm-up, please, if you can go to slido.com with this code or scan the QR code that you can see here. We have a couple of questions for you. All right, good. Most people attended last week. Let's go to the next question, maybe. Which country are you connecting from? We already asked this last week, but I think it's good to know every time. So please, if you can type in your country and we could see the geographical distribution. Okay, Greece, Romania, Austria are the strongest today. Germany also. Have some people from Spain, Hungary, Slovenia, Ireland, Bulgaria, Belgium, Cyprus. Right. Any other entries? We can see mainly from Greece, Austria, Germany, Portugal. Okay, Slovenia and Spain going up. Good to know. Okay, and finally, a bit more related to the content today, we would like to know if you believe that in your country there is the right regulations to promote data-driven energy communities. Do you feel that your country is working good towards promoting the energy communities, or is the regulation still too slow? Is it not clear and it doesn't really help the energy communities? Or you just don't know much about this topic and you just would like to learn about it today? You can let us know. So as I see, most of you think that the regulation is not clear or is advancing but slowly. That's unfortunately the reality today, but this means that there is a lot of work to do in regulation aspects to help energy communities advance. And that's exactly what we'll learn about today. So thank you for your contributions. I think I will stop with the Slido and we can go back to the main slides, Oscar. And I will let you know the agenda for today before I hand over to my colleague. By the way, my name is Yulian Imaña. I'm working in ICLA Europe. I didn't present myself, so sorry. Here we go. All right, here we have the agenda. So as you know, we started with this welcome and warm-up, and now my colleague Oscar will give you an introduction to the Empower project. And we will follow this by an intervention from Sem Oxenar from Regulatory Assistance Project that will talk to us about EU regulation on citizen participation in the energy sector and regulatory frameworks for flexibility services. Then we will have a small coffee break and we will continue with our Empower project pilot representatives that will give us an analysis of the national regulatory frameworks for energy communities, their experience in their countries, let's say. And after that, we will have the closing. So having said that, we have a very exciting session ahead, and I will give the floor to Oscar now for the rest.
Thank you, Julian, so much for the nice introduction. And thank you, everyone, for joining this second session. So, as Julian have said, my name is Oscar Ortega. I work for ICLE Local Government for Sustainability in the Sustainable Energy Systems team. So, today I wanted to start with a brief introduction before going into the Empower project and what we are doing in this Horizon initiative. So maybe looking a bit into the big picture, looking at the Europe energy transition, looking into this nice report that was sent to me last week about the European Energy Innovation magazine. I was talking about flexibility demand. And so basically some key points about this nice article is that we know that Europe has invested heavily on renewable energy and grid and some market reforms, but there's a key aspect that has not been explored as much, and that's the mindset flexibility. So according to this report and some experts, is one of the fastest, cleanest way to cut costs, integrate the renewable energy sources that are variable, and ease grid congestion. So if it's a great opportunity, why we are not taking it? And yeah, basically you can see a lot of statistics and information, but it all goes down into defining clear, workable regulation, plus the component of digitalization. And this is exactly what Empower tries to tackle. And today's session is going to be about translating this legal and regulatory landscape into what communities can really do with what they have. And yeah, that's it pretty much to set the scene for the Empower project. Now, going into the Empower project, some of you already joined the first session, but just to remember you, this is a Horizon project that started 2 years ago in 2023, and is coordinated by the National Technical University of Athens. We are 28 partners, we are in 13 countries, and we have what we call front runners, which are countries that have their energy communities in a more advanced stage, let's say, also related to the regulatory frameworks that enable them to integrate these digital tools and foster community integration in an easier way, let's say. But we have two early adopters that are trying to follow those steps, and today we're going to learn more about all of them, both front runners and early adopters. Super quickly, Empower vision, as you can see there, is to design, develop, and demonstrate some social sciences and humanities-driven methodologies. That means social engagement in it more than that, but in general terms is that, but also integrated with digital solutions, artificial intelligence, this data-driven energy secure communities. That's the concept that we are promoting. And here you can see those key terms that we manage in the project: the energy activated citizens and the data-driven energy secure communities. Basically, it's turning people from just consumers to active participants in the energy transition by changing their behaviors. And data-driven energy secure communities is a community that is aware of their consumption and take conscious decision enabled by these data-driven tools. So basically, that's a super quick summary. And just to not bore you with that, we have this leadership program that you registered. We are very happy to have you on board. Basically, if you are here, you are either a person who works in energy communities or is trying to initiate energy communities. You're working at a local or regional government, and you want to know, understand more about these digital tools and enable community energy. Or maybe you're a public company or private company that gives services to these entities, or a social support organization that is already managing uh, all these processes, and you want to see if you can also jump into this concept. So it doesn't matter if you are strictly in this stakeholder list or not. You are most welcome to learn about what we are going to give you in these sessions. And today we're in the module 2, empowering citizens in energy communities, navigating regulations. So yeah, that's all from my side. I'm going to start talking about the great speakers we have today. So first of all, we have Sem Oxenar. He is a senior associate at the Regulatory Assistance Project, a global nonprofit supporting governments and regulators in the energy transition. Sem is an expert on EU energy policy and regulation. So he will be talking in the first part. And in the second part, we're going to have the pilots. From the Portuguese pilot is going to speak Luis Casino. He's a project manager and energy services developer at Copernico, where one of his main activities is promoting and developing energy communities in Portugal. He has gained a lot of practical experience on the creation of energy communities, including the search for national funds. Luis today is presenting the Portuguese pilot and the Portuguese national regulatory schemes. Then we have Jonathan Sanham. Jonathan Sanham is the managing director of DC6 Technologies. He works with industry on a daily basis, realizing energy efficient measures, and also works on energy research in Ireland via EU-funded initiatives, especially looking at energy resilience and activating citizens. Jonathan today represents the Irish pilot in Empower. Then we have also Elizabeth Schabbetsberger. She is a project manager at Blueprint Energy Solutions. She brings experience in research and stakeholder engagement across energy and sustainability projects. Today, he will be talking about the Austrian pilot in Empower. So in the next slide, we have the 4 following speakers. And yes, today we also have with us Joseph Supa. He is the managing director of Enasco, an energy holding company that deals with engineering and financial advisory for the energy industry. Enasco has advised and managed several Hungarian renewable energy communities. Today, he represents the Hungarian pilot in Empower. We also have Tatiani Giorgiotti. He's an energy engineer and trader at Gears, which is a renewable energy aggregator in Greece. She has experience in both the academic research and industry regarding the renewable energy sector and wholesale electricity markets. Today, she is representing the Greek pilot in Empower. And last but not least, we have Esther Ayas. He is a research and development engineer in the innovation department of Cuerva. She is responsible for the technical and project management aspects of several innovation energy projects. She has previous experience in industrial maintenance and processes and represents the Spanish pilot in Empower. Nazaret Garcia is a product manager at Verdi. She's managing European projects and acting as a bridge between local communities and technical execution. She makes sure their projects deliver real impact while staying connected to the people they serve. Nazaret is also representing the Spanish pilot in Empower. And without further delay, we're going to start with the presentation of today's topic. Empowering citizens in energy communities, navigating regulations. So Sam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Oscar, and hello, everyone. Good to be here again. I have a little bit of a cold, so I might have to mute once in a while if I have to cough. All right, so Oscar already introduced us. I work with an organization called RAP, and we are a nonprofit. I'm based in Brussels, but we have people around Europe, and we work a lot with regulators and governments, to really help them modernize all the regulations we have in place and really make sure we get a framework that works well with a renewable and decentralized and efficient energy system. I'm very happy to be part of this ENPOWER project. I don't know who will be doing the slides. Is it you, Julian, or Oscar? Or can I do it myself?
Yes, I can jump to the topic.
Great, thank you. All right, so to kick off this session, we'll first have some time to talk about the EU level regulations, specifically on citizen participation in the energy sector, and then also a little bit on demand side flexibility. And then afterwards, we can go to looking more at specific countries and how they have implemented these regulations. Because as you will find, even though there is now quite a lot defined at the EU level, it also leaves a lot of space to individual member states to implement it in different ways. So maybe going back a little bit, if we look at the past 10 years, we've seen that actually quite a lot happened when it comes to the legal framework for citizen energy or citizen participation in the energy sector. So if we go back to, for example, 2016, there was really no EU level support or framework for or legal status for citizens. And then the Juncker administration first mentioned the importance of also putting citizens central in the energy union. And this then later also resulted in definitions, of course, that we probably all know of renewable energy communities and self-consumers under the new Renewable Energy Directive. But also a legal definition of peer-to-peer trading. And again, as said, this still leaves a lot of space to member states. So for example, if we look at the renewable energy community and citizen energy community definitions, member states can really define these based on whether it's a legal entity, criteria, or activities. But we can go into that later in a bit more detail. And then in 2019, we also had the electricity directive in defining citizen energy communities and also active customers. And then just last year, and a further expansion of the electricity market directive, we also had a definition on the right to energy sharing. Of course, this all doesn't mean that these concepts didn't exist. It just means that there was no clear EU level legal framework for it, even though maybe specific member states would already have different version of it or different variants of it in place. And then maybe looking at what's going on right now, we see that currently proposals being discussed on a citizens energy package, which is still under discussion, and also a new network code, which are sort of the rules, especially governing grids and system operation and electricity markets, is being designed on demand response. So I'll try to I've put quite a lot of text on the coming slides, also so that it can be a bit of a reference for everyone later. So I'll try to not go in detail and read too much of the actual quotes, because then we'll be here all day. So I'll try to keep it brief so we also still have some time for questions. And then hopefully people can go back to the text later if they want to know exactly how something is defined. So I think what was really the biggest achievement over the past years is that we've seen a lot of new roles, rights, and also obligations being this sort of designed for citizens as part of the energy system. So first of all, being a self-consumer, someone who consumes the energy they produce themselves, then also doing that collectively, so with neighbors, or in some countries you could even do this with your whole postal code area, and then of course finally with an energy community. So it's new roles that citizens have. Of course, in many places they were already taking this. Energy cooperatives have been around for a long time, but there was no EU defined model for it. So maybe looking at the first one, active customers, really explicitly giving consumers the right to sell electricity they generated. And they can operate individually or as a group, which is called jointly acting, or through aggregators. So, for example, signing up to a virtual power plant service or with their neighbors. And also, so they have a right to participate in flexibility and energy efficiency schemes, and also really engage in storage. And then what's interesting is that active customers can use also still fossil fuels to produce heat or power. And obviously, they are subject to network charges and financial responsibility for imbalances caused. And then, actually, if we look at renewable self-consumers, it's a bit of a subgroup of these active customers, really looking just at customers using renewable energy. And well, so first of all, what it does is it really gives you the right to generate renewable energy for own consumption and store and sell excess renewable electricity, whether it's through PPAs, electricity suppliers, but also peer-to-peer trading arrangements. And I think this was a really big expansion of, let's say, end user or citizen rights in the energy sector, because prior to this, selling energy, you basically had to have a retail permit for that. Of course, then again, it will depend a lot on how countries have implemented this. And I think this is also some of the complexities that we will see when in the next part, when we look at the pilot, that every country has made different decisions in how they implement things. So really complicating again these rights. And you might think, well, but in my country, actually, it's different. And yeah, unfortunately, that can very well be. Or some countries might be quite late with implementing it. And I think, yeah, maybe one interesting thing to note here is that, again, of course, self-consumers still need to pay applicable network charges. So you still are responsible for the grid costs that you cause as an end user. And you can act jointly with other self-consumers, whether they are located in the same building or in the same apartment block, and you can share your generated energy. And so this is interesting that already before there was really a defined concept of energy sharing, which we got last year. This was already sort of foreshadowed, and they gave the idea of, oh yeah, you can do energy sharing, but they didn't really explain or give a specific model for it. And then maybe here it's interesting to note that active customers could also act in a group beyond building level, whereas renewable self-consumers was bound to the building level. And maybe interesting to highlight is that in theory, there should be no double charging for storage on site. So whether it's taxes or grid tariffs. Then, of course, we've got the definitions for renewable and citizen energy communities. I won't go into detail into the differences between those and how they are defined, etc., because I think many will be very aware of this. And it is, of course, a bit a quirk of EU regulation that we ended up with two definitions. And of course, I think if you go talk to the people from Rescope EU, who have always been representing the cooperatives, they would have very much preferred to have one definition. But yeah, there are slightly different membership criteria and purposes, etc., activities that they can undertake. And I would say generally, renewable energy community is the preferred definition if you're really coming from a citizen energy perspective. Then last year, we've had the finalization of the revision of the Energy Market Directive and regulation. And this also for the first time really brought a bit more clarity to what this concept right to energy sharing or energy sharing could mean. Well, first of all, there was no such right before. So, of course, in individual countries, they might allow different versions of energy sharing, but you did not necessarily have the right as a citizen to do this. And well, now households, small enterprises, or public bodies within the same bidding zone or a more limited area can be defined by member states. For example, where I live in Brussels, they've limited it to Brussels, so the city, and not the whole bidding zone. But you now really explicitly have the right to share energy. And active customers may appoint someone to organize this for them, an energy sharing organizer, which can, of course, be an energy community, but it's not required to be an energy community, that really do the coordination, maintenance, billing, etc. Well, then it sets a lot of technical requirements, sort of how you do the metering, how you do the settlement, that you're still required to pay sort of your share of the taxes, levies, and network charges. And then something that I think is really important is that it creates a bit of a exemption from supplier obligations for smaller users and producers, because that is really what was hindering, I think, in the past, a lot of sort of citizen engagement in the energy sector, is that there were a lot of requirements in place if you wanted to sell energy. And this exception makes this a lot more accessible. And then there are some requirements in there on also ensuring energy poor and vulnerable households can access energy sharing scheme. And then finally also that member states may promote plug-in mini solar systems up to 800 watts. And I think we've seen this now in quite a few countries. It was quite popular in Germany, but this year it's now also allowed in Belgium to just get a plug-in solar system. Then related to energy sharing is also the concept of peer-to-peer energy trading, which was already introduced in the RED 2. And interestingly, it's sort of mentioned as an activity, but the EU legislation doesn't really give you a clear model of how to do it. It does give some conditions, but in the end, it's also really up to member states to implement a model in their country. And it's important to note that it can be done through an energy community, but it doesn't need to be done through an energy community. And the idea is really to allow the sale of renewable energy really between market participants by means of a contract with automated execution and settlement of the transaction. Then maybe some additional legal requirements that were introduced in the Electricity Market Directive last year that are maybe not directly related to citizen participation, but can still be very interesting. Is first of all that it gives you the right to use dedicated measurement devices for settlement of system services if there's no smart meter installed. So especially in countries where smart meter rollout hasn't advanced that much, this could be very useful. And then it tries to push more flexible contract and especially retailers who offer more flexible contracts, which can be very useful, of course, for flexibility services. And it also specifically allows that you can have multiple contracts per connection, which is, again, very useful. For example, if you want to have both one dynamic contract for a vehicle charging and maybe one fixed contract for your heating. And then it sets also some requirements on fixed contracts, which is following the energy crisis. But luckily, it does say that even with such a fixed contract, you can still participate in demand response and energy sharing. All right. Sorry, Oscar, did I click away the slide? Well, maybe then, while you reopen it, Oscar, we can also have some questions on this part, if there are. Otherwise, we'll wait till the end.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any questions. You can type them on the chat. You can also open your microphone. I don't know. So it doesn't seem the case. So yeah, we can have some time in the end. Thank you, Sam, and thank you for the first part. It was very interesting. By the way, I am the one who's changing the slides. You can do it, but it only reflects your computer. So just for you to know. So the floor is yours.
Yes, so I don't see the slides anymore. Does anyone else still see them?
I still see them.
I can see them.
All right. Wait, the only problem is that I'm done. Yeah, now I can see them again. Great. All right, so I will let you know then when to change the slides. So if you could go to slide 26. So for the second part, I'd like to look a bit more into EU regulations for demand-side flexibility. And without going deep into what demand-side flexibility entails, thought it was good to just share a bit of all the possibilities households have and especially will have in the future to participate in flexibility services. So really varying their demand or increasing and decreasing their generation. Especially, of course, once more and more buildings will start to have solar PV, heat pumps, and electric vehicles or batteries, there will also be a lot more assets to participate in these types of services. And if we look at the EU legal framework, it's interesting that there is actually no EU legal definition of demand-side flexibility. There is a definition proposed by an EU smart grids task force, which I think is very clear and probably in line with what many people think when they think about demand-side flexibility. So really the ability of a customer to deviate from its normal electricity consumption or production profile in response to price signals or market incentives. And then specifically identifying load, demand-side generation, and demand-side storage. Of course, there is actually a definition of demand-side response, which is very, very similar to the proposed definition on demand-side flexibility. But of course, it's a bit more narrow in the sense that it doesn't specifically mention generation and storage. Although, yeah, you might be able to argue that electricity load at 1 meter point could also include storage or generation behind the meter. So as these regulations are still very much in development as well, I thought it would be nice to if we briefly look at sort of what ideally do we need to activate household flexibility and where do we see this reflected in EU regulation. So first of all, I think it's really important that we have really robust tools for measuring and valuing customer flexibility, incentivizing flexibility to the right market price signals, so dynamic tariffs, time of use tariffs for grid, then really ensuring a level playing field for demand-side resources, so especially allowing smaller users, for example, access to the demand-side response markets, then really accelerating installation of flexible asset in homes, because without more heat pumps, solar panels, batteries, electric vehicles in homes, connected to homes, there is also no electricity demand to flex. And then make flexible actions also easier and safer for consumers. So that all about user design, automation, the digital tools, etc. A lot of the work actually that ENPOWER is engaged in. And if we then look at which regulations are involved in these actions, you see that when we start talking about demand-side flexibility, it becomes much more complicated than active participation of citizens, because then all of a sudden we are no longer just talking about electricity market design, but also about building standards, product standards, energy efficiency demand, even alternative fuels infrastructure regulation for vehicles, data governance, digitalization. So you start touching upon really a whole range of rules and regulations. Maybe to zoom in a little bit on some relatively new aspects with also, relevance to energy communities and citizens is vehicle to grid charging, or also bidirectional charging. So both charging your vehicle with power from the grid, but also delivering power back to the grid. Here, especially relevant is this alternative fuels regulation, and then its delegated act. So what it's really trying to do is set new standards for public charging and in the future also for private charging. And this standard would allow bidirectional charging. So it supports a lot more data information, data exchange that is necessary for smart charging and bidirectional charging. So this will be a big improvement. However, it only puts the obligation on producers of chargers to be compatible with the standard, but it's optional on the side of users. So for example, car manufacturers would not be required to use the standard. Doesn't mean they won't do it, of course, but yeah, it doesn't ensure that every electric vehicle is then also in line with the standard and can also support bidirectional charging, even though maybe all the chargers are then capable of doing it. Then there are still also some technology issues to solve when it comes to bidirectional charging. So there's also an international technological working group on this, and they're as part of the International Energy Agency, really looking at solving interoperability issues between vehicles and charging. Then finally, it's important that we will have the right requirements in the network codes. So either for generators, because of course, once you as a vehicle are delivering electricity to the grid, you could be seen as a generator. So we need to make sure that there's the right criteria and maybe some exceptions in the requirements for generators, but also on demand connection and then demand response. And I think maybe one thing that's interesting to mention is that the European Commission is now really looking into allowing regulatory sandboxes for vehicle to grid at the member state level. And we should see a guideline from the Commission hopefully next month on this, which could really allow member states to appoint or allow projects that might not be in line yet with current legislation, but to already try and put in practice some of these elements under an exception. Then finally, right now, there are ongoing discussions about a new network code on demand response, and this is a very technical story, but I try to highlight some elements that could be relevant for active customers. First of all, really trying to make sure that active customers can enable demand response services either directly or through aggregation services, and also really making sure that service providers are always allowed to offer congestion management and voltage control or system operation services to grid operators. And one of the things they have proposed to do is reduce the barriers to participate in balancing markets, so lower the minimum bid size. Although I know that the grid operators who responded to this proposal were actually against lowering the bid size because it makes things more complicated for them. But then also simplified and more standardized administrative procedures, including, for example, defining standardized products that can then also be pre-qualified already to participate in these processes. So once you develop as a service provider a product that is in line with these conditions, you can then very easily participate in these processes. And there will be a sort of one-stop shop flexibility information system where service providers can get shared access to all the sort of technical criteria they need defining the different products. So hopefully providing more clarity to users, and especially also allowing smaller service providers to more easily participate. And again, it explicitly allows dedicated measuring devices instead of smart meters. It will, however, take some time before this will be implemented at the national level because, well, first of all, it still needs to be decided at the EU level, and then there's up to 24 months before it could go into force at the national level. If people want to read up more on this, I've put in a link to the consultation, which is now ongoing. And then maybe if we go to the next slide. Something also very interesting that's currently ongoing is called the Citizens Energy Package, which again also tries to really support flexible market participation of consumers, and that's also really benefiting consumers. And interestingly, it won't really be a new sort of legal definition or giving maybe firm rights, but it will especially be focusing on giving guidance to member states how to maybe implement some of all the definitions that we've seen, like energy sharing, in a way that it can really support flexible market participation for citizens. But also perhaps give a bit of guidelines on how consumers could be remunerated for their flexibility as part of retail contracts, and what consumer protection needs to be applied, including, for example, when offering peer-to-peer services. So it really hopes to clarify maybe a bit more a lot of the existing definitions that, as we saw, provide quite a lot of free space for interpretation. And that's really where this Citizens Energy Package hopes to come in. All right, I think we'll stop it here for now. So there's already a lot of quite technical information. I hope, nevertheless, it gave you a bit of an overview of what has been going on and is going on at the EU level. And then, yeah, when we get into the pilots and the national level implementation, things will likely become a bit more tangible.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks a lot for this overview. We actually have one question already in the Q&A section from Jonathan Sandam, so I will read it for you. He's saying that a lot of the early flexibility services in the system are reduction in demand by introduction of diesel generation behind the meter. He's asking if there is any view on removing this as an option in the medium term and ensuring flexibility is only via energy efficiency or clean energy.
Wow, that's an interesting question. I'd never heard of this. I would wonder in which country this is, because in most countries I'm familiar with, it would be very expensive to have diesel generators participate in your flexibility services. But I don't think generally there is a limit on the type of technologies that can be used for flexibility services. At least definitely the demand response network code won't introduce it. And of course, grid operators, they procure, let's say, balancing services or ancillary services on the different markets. And yeah, this includes just all the connected generators or demand or balancing responsible parties. So yeah, that if your country has a coal power plant, then it includes also the coal power plant. If your country has diesel generators, it also includes diesel generators. But of course, you won't be able to do it as part of a renewable energy community or a renewable self-consumer, because they are explicitly for renewables. But maybe, yeah, it would be interesting to know more about which country this is.
Yeah, I don't know if Jonathan wants to mention.
So absolutely. I think it's so in Ireland there's a lot of flexibility services are actually the bringing in diesel generation. It works out at about 30 cents per kilowatt hour. But the remuneration is in often quite a lot more from the capacity market and from flexibility. People asking for flexibility like the DSO. The challenge we'll probably have with it is that it dilutes the market and nearly outprices the renewable version of it and the community option if it continues, you know.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting to hear that. I mean, this might have to do, Ireland, of course, is quite an isolated electricity market.
It could be unique, absolutely. Yeah.
But this sounds like something that we might ideally solve with taxes. Yeah, like a carbon tax or or maybe just an energy tax, increasing the price of diesel. But yeah, it's interesting to hear this. I haven't heard about this. I mean, I guess in continental Europe, it's a lot of batteries coming online and a lot of gas power plants, which are already existing that offer this. But I hadn't heard about diesel generators.
Good. Thank you. And we have one more question actually from Karsten. He's saying that the decarbonization of the EU's electricity system is making steady progress, but electricity represents less than 25% of the final energy consumption. The upcoming electrification action plan promotes the switch. What are the biggest, most cost-effective switch opportunities that citizens or energy communities should implement?
Good question. And then we also go to my favorite topic of decarbonizing heating. But so I guess cost effective really depends on your situation. But of course, if we look at efficiency, we know that heat pumps have efficiencies 3 to 4 times the time of even a very efficient gas boiler. So electrifying gas heating or oil heating will give you big energy savings, big emissions reductions, and then it really depends on the market design in the country and electricity prices of whether it will save you money or not. And then I think probably more generally across all countries, electrified mobility should now be lower in cost than combustion-based mobility. Of course, if you look over the lifetime of a vehicle, but if you look at the new electric vehicles coming on to the market, a lot of them are similar priced to their fossil fuel counterparts. So I think there it's easier to say, okay, across the whole of Europe, you can probably save money by switching. Whereas for heating, it's a bit more complicated. And for example, here in Belgium, or also in the UK or Poland or Germany, the gas is so much cheaper than electricity. It's very hard to save money when you switch to an electrified solution.
Thank you. Then, Oscar, do we move to the break or I'll let you?
Thank you, Julian, and thank you so much for those interesting questions and very insightful answers, Sam, and for the whole presentation. So if there's any other question, now is the time. Otherwise, yes, we can have a 5-minute break and we can reconvene at 10:55. So you can get coffee or glass of water. So yeah, see you in 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Oh, there's one person with a hand raised. Yes, please. Okay. Well, if you have any question, you can type it in the chat. If not, we see in 5 minutes. Mm. So welcome for the people that are already here. We're going to wait for 1 minute more. We're about to start with the second part. Okay, then I welcome you all again to the second part of the webinar. Today we will be now going deep into the national regulatory frameworks of the partner countries that I introduced previously in Empower. So what is this going to be about? So we need to understand how energy communities are defined and regulated across different EU member states. And this is really important to understand how there's going to be knowledge sharing and collaboration between the member states. So we're going to learn about the pilots from their stories, how they use this or how can be used these regulatory frameworks, but also if there's any potential barriers that they're facing. So we're going to learn that this concept of energy communities it's different from country to country, and we're going to learn this by understanding the stories from the pilots. So now we're going to start with the first speaker that I introduced also previously, and he's going to be talking about Portugal's legal adoption of renewable energy communities and collective self-consumption. So I welcome you all to Luis. Luis, if you are out there, please, you are free to start.
Can you hear me?
Yes, totally.
Okay, great. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation and also to be given the opportunity to present the state of art of collective self-consumption and energy communities in Portugal, and also how can this be integrated within the Empower project. So I'm a project manager in Copernico, and mainly I'm focused on promoting and constructing energy communities that are driven by citizens. So the citizens themselves are the driving force of these energy communities, and they establish partnerships within the possibilities of the framework. And that's what is my mission for you to be presenting you, hopefully a very short and objective and not going into too much details. So you can pass the slide. So just to give you the starting points on this presentation, it's important to say that Portugal actually was one of the first countries that transposed the RED II directive, which Sam already presented before in this session. And so we were one of the first that we did it through the decree law of 162 2019. Here the numbers are really not that important, but just this was a partial transposition of the RED II directive, which was concluded in the decree law number 15 2022, and this one put out of force the 2019, and it gave the background and the framework of the modern or the actual national electric system in Portugal. So in this framework, it was set up how the energy communities and collective self-consumption are created, how they can operate, its rights, its duties within all the energy sector in Portugal, and also to give the more detailed framework to prosumers, so that even if they act individually or collectively. And so this information and it can be accessed through the Directorate General of Energy and Geology website, which is the entity that license and approves the energy communities projects, mainly the energy sharing projects, and we're going to see in a minute what that means. And so this is all the information that you can reach, and also there's other entities that also participate in this process, like the national regulator of electric services, the ERS, and also the DSO, the E-Redes, who also does the the final approval and the connection to the production systems to the consumption. So yeah, and so this is something that is being already done. So I know that it was already presented by Sam, so I won't go into too much details, especially the first one, which is a timeline, the European timeline when the clean energy package and RED 2 directive and how it's being transposed. And soon we will add the RED 3 that is already was already published and is now starting the transposal by the state members. And then below we have the Portuguese timeline, and this I put before the 2019. I put one before the 2014 because it was the first time that it created a framework for the any citizen to have their solar panels and to inject their electricity into the grid and gain a financial incentive. And by that, we had a feed-in tariff. And by 2019, we had this decree law that enabled, we shifted more towards self-consumption, so a reduction in the local consumption and the promotion of local production. And then this is the regulations that enables practically the function of the collective self-consumption and energy communities. And then we had the 15 to 2022 that ended in the revision, and this is our framework that we have now. So yeah, and so I just to be clear on these two concepts that I already mentioned, but it's very important because in Portugal it's common to mistake these both and putting as a name energy communities to collective self-consumption projects. And this is being taken especially by companies and corporate entities that are selling these energy communities. But we need to be clear, and this is very clear on the legislation, that we have in on the left the collective self-consumption, which is the most simple way from doing energy production and sharing in Portugal. So you only need a point of production and 2 points of consumption that can even belong to the same person or to the same entity. And you don't need to create a legal entity. You only need to have a manager that can be an individual person or a collective entity, but not created by the purpose or used by the purpose, and have a document that is called the internal regulations that sets the rules of this collective self-consumption. What I mean by that is these rules determines whether how the entrance and exit of members happen, how the decision making process when it has, because the collective self-consumption don't requires autonomy, and everyone can have a vote. So that's what sets apart of energy community, and how the functions of the manager of this collective self-consumption. So this is a more simple way to do energy sharing. But it's really limited to that. It doesn't allow to have another activities. As for my energy community that we have, a renewable energy community, here the scope it's much broader. We have a non-profit legal entity that can be a cooperative, an association, a foundation or even a limited enterprises, as long as these principles are taken into account, are really protected, which is the autonomy. Everyone must own the energy community and its assets. You need, and also it must be open to everyone. You have voluntary participation. You cannot exclude anyone in energy community regarding gender, political situation. This is you cannot exclude by any kind of criteria. So this is also one of the things that's at the part of a collective self-consumption, because the collective self-consumption you can prevent people from entering the project, but the energy community it doesn't. And last but not least, it this legal entity can develop several activities that goes beyond the energy sharing. This is important because even though that our framework really focus on energy sharing and production, an energy community can develop much more activities with the energy that is being produced, or at least it's a subject within the community, which you can develop mobility, can develop energy efficiency and citizen-led renovation, or even provide energy literacy sessions to the local community. So this is what the main characteristics of both, and it's important to see which participation or which partners you can be involved in the energy community. So that will be in the next slide, if you may. So, and this is something that is an issue in Portugal, and you can and that this is a barrier compared to other countries like the Netherlands and Belgium, and even in Germany, which the municipalities can be members of the energy community, or at least participate there directly in the community. In Portugal, that is not possible, unfortunately, because even though the decree law says that it's open and voluntary participation and everyone can be a member, there's an incompatibility with the local frameworks, or the legal frameworks that regulates local enterprise activities and transparency mechanisms within the local administrative power and the municipalities, for example, and the energy and the common citizen. So this is happened because of public procurement procedures, since this it has incompatibilities, since basically the principle is that why the municipality is associating with myself or my neighborhood is which is part of energy community, but not any other any other member or any other citizen or even any other SME, local SME. So this framework doesn't take into consideration the open participation and voluntary participation in the energy communities. So, and when it comes to Court of Public Auditions, normally this or mostly they are rejected because these frameworks that really have to be changed. It's something that is being detected, and throughout municipalities throughout Portugal who already tried to go this way. They 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 face this problem, and mainly they are shifting towards a collective self-consumption with public procurement with the lowest price, which unfortunately energy communities cannot compete. And sometimes this is opportunity for companies to be part to take and to take these projects and capture. But let's not be all pessimistic here. There's opportunities for municipalities to support energy communities, at least in Portugal, and we are going to see that very shortly, if you may. So here we have the first role, which can be a sponsored. The municipality doesn't take intervention directly. It's just but can develop conditions and resources for the energy communities to to appear and to be created, like the participatory budget. They can develop a participatory budget for energy communities to be able to purchase and install energy facilities. Like, for example, we had one in 2015 in Odemira, in the municipality of Odemira in Alentejo, which the municipality provided a budget for the installation of photovoltaic panels to the nursery home, house, and the local parish. And it was an association that did that and won, and they installed by themselves. So they were an energy community before energy communities regulation was in force. So this is one example, and of course it also it can provide renting or usage of a room or resources to develop energy communities. So whether they can meet, they can provide one person to help to construct these energy communities. And of course, that also can a municipality can define targets to set the stage for the favorment of the energy communities creation. Like a municipality of Valencia developed set a target for 2013 to have 100 energy communities. So this is one example that can be done. And second, it goes without saying that municipalities have communication departments, they have resources that can provide a message or reach out to more people than a local association, a local cooperative cannot do. So they can use their channels to promote community energy and local energy initiatives. So this is one big strength that can be used if done right, and also they can help to create local info sessions, to have one-stop shops for people to be aware of energy communities and their possibilities, and also provide matchmaking between them. So that's one strength. And lastly, it can help create a local network within. Since they have the most contacts, they can create with the local associations. They can create with institutions that can be provide resources. So since there's a wider scope, they can use that for promotion of energy communities. So. And yes, and this is also very important, it's the public procurement. The municipalities can really have the power to provide public citizen participation in the roof, in their public buildings, and really help to promote citizen participation, citizen energy, and help reducing also the municipal buildings energy consumption, which also it's public since we all pay that electricity. So one of the things, it's really use the social and environmental criteria in the tenders that they do to have solar panels in their public in the public roofs. They can promote a quota for the city local citizens, or to have they can be favored the local associations that apply to the tenders, for example. And also services, they can also contract services directly to the energy communities for efficiency. And this happened, I think, in the municipality of Leuven, which also they contracted a local energy community for to reduce their consumption. And finally, it's really to join the networks and provide to be able to participate in like a networks like Energy Cities, which can be really a place for knowledge sharing and best practices. Yeah, and the next slide. Yeah, and finally, we have the role of facilitators. So since the municipalities and the technicians have the resources and the knowledge, or can have the knowledge to promote energy communities, they can be really on the ground and help the citizens through one-stop shops. They can have one or two people that can help for example, to assess the potential of the roofs, to do feasibility studies for the first project, energy sharing, or whether having all the other activities, and also they can develop tools so the citizens can really assess by themselves, and really to have if the technicians are really prepared, and this is something that Copernico has been done in the last years, we give training to these local technicians so they can be helped and prepared to be able to help the citizens, especially now because we are developing a network of one-stop shops, municipal one-stop shops for helping the citizens, and this is really can be a really strong factor. So I think that concludes exactly my presentation on the Portuguese framework. I hope I didn't take too much time, and of course, I'm always open to questions and ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luis. Actually, there's one question, but it was from the last section. So if you're around, Sam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
There's this question. It was asked, just when I was saying goodbye in the break, so it got in the middle. But it's a question by Mahendra Singh. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing correctly. It says it's a general question. It says, what are the regulations and guidelines for changing or switching flexibility aggregators for energy communities?
That's a great question. I don't think I know an answer for that by heart. So I don't know if there are fixed guidelines to switching for an energy community from an aggregator. I would say for an individual end user, just your regular customer rights would apply. But for an energy community, I'm not sure if that's defined at the EU level. I don't know, maybe if Luis has any insights to share from Portugal on this, or where this has already been a case or not, that an energy community wanted to switch service provider.
Well, we can look into that and probably provide a more detailed answer, but I don't believe so. We don't. We are still in the pilot projects for flexibility services and to change aggregators and everything. So yeah, I don't think we still don't have the framework to set this change at least very fast. In Portugal, you have if your energy community have a surplus, you can sell that to an aggregator. There's for free in the market, which also interestingly enough, we are one of them. We have that services, but it is more really around it. So you can sell the surplus to an aggregator after the energy sharing, okay. And there's no incentive whatsoever, or at least for the switching, I think. But we can look at with more detail to provide a more detailed answer.
Yeah, I will get all the questions. So just in terms of time, unfortunately, we cannot go deeper into those questions. And if there's any other question, we can wait until the end of the presentations to make it easier. Now it's second presentation of today. I leave you with Jonathan. I see you're there. So the floor is yours.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. Okay, so nice to meet you. My name is Jonathan Sandham from DC6 Technologies, and we're representing the Irish pilot within ENPOWER. So this is just kind of an overview of where we are with the citizen and community regulations in Ireland and what mechanisms are in place there. So at a high level through the presentation, we'll go through the landscape on the island of Ireland, facilities that exist for energy communities across both energy and the other sectors of our government, the barriers that exist for energy communities, Some of the success stories we'll get into, and the energy projects that have done well. We'll talk about the limitations and gaps in the regulatory framework and future directions that we think we should go on. So in Ireland, we have a number of different terms which are kind of established in government. We have the concept of an energy community, which is a collective of participants who have a collective energy production as individuals who present themselves as a community. And they are managed through a number of different mechanisms. So one of those mechanisms is the next item, which is a sustainable energy community, which is recognized by the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, which is a department in our government. So an SEC is a community which focuses on overall energy efficiency and sustainability measures, including climate change and the biodiversity. We have a renewable energy community and a cooperative entity who are really recognized by our regulator for utilities as an entity, and it's the RECs that get preferential rights in auctions for the likes of community-driven endeavours, which could be wind farms, could be grid connection for solar, could be for batteries. And it's usually RECs then that go down the route of creating a cooperative from an energy perspective, which is a legal entity associated with that REC. And then we have local energy initiatives. So we have a number of different groups around the country who will take on local energy initiatives that could be energy efficiency, deployment of solar collectively or otherwise. That falls back into the SEC remit at a structure level. So there's very ambitious renewable energy targets in Ireland for 2020 or 2030 and 2050. We're aiming for nearly 100% instantaneous renewables on our system by 2030, which is considering we're such a disconnected islanded network with limited DC interconnections. It's very, very tough to do that, to balance the system and achieve that at any point in time. However, we don't actually have a lot of the overall mix is not as high as you would think, considering we can get up to 80 and 90% instantaneous renewables at the moment, and that's because there's a big capacity market there, and unfortunately, when the wind doesn't blow, we find ourselves running on brown fuels. There's policies emphasizing sustainability targets for reduction in energy efficiency, which is set up by the SEAI. A lot of those are mandating kind of targets to be hit by 2030. And I'll get onto some of that in a second. And then there's regulatory guidelines on community empowerment. So the REC mechanism and the SEC mechanism is well understood in Ireland, but the vehicles to allow an REC to flourish and for an SEC to flourish are not so well documented and not so well lived at this point in time. And by 2030, one of the big sustainability and renewable integration targets that we're seeing is there has to be 30% flexibility on the Irish network to facilitate the 100% instantaneous renewables target. And of that, 11% of it is charged, 11%, which is nearly, we say 35% of the 30% figure, is charged to the DNO. So it's DNO sourced flexibility, which will be down at a community level, will be down at a consumer prosumer level, heat pumps, batteries, solar PV, electric vehicle chargers, that kind of thing, rather than really large factories. So we have government bodies which are taking RED 1, RED 2, RED 3 into Irish statute form and writing them into law. They're predominantly writing in the mix, the fuel mix, rather than really defining what's going to happen with communities at this point in time. We've the regulatory bodies who are looking and overseeing the compliance to ensure fair energy market operations. And I suppose understanding how a community is integrated into the market mechanism in a fair and just way is can be quite challenging, and it to facilitate that, the CRU, the regulator of utilities in Ireland, has to go out to consultation for all of these things, and a general consultation process takes up to 3 years in its current form. So that in itself creates a kind of a long timeline for getting these things into a live state on the ground. We have community groups, which I've gone through in the RECs and the SECs, and then we have the energy suppliers, and energy suppliers are the most capable entity to be able to facilitate an REC and an SEC at the moment. So we've seen 2 tracks develop. Some RECs engage with a supplier to have them accommodated, and we've had some RECs have set up a supply entity, which unfortunately during the Ukraine crisis, the volatility in pricing actually put them out of business. So there's definitely challenges on the supplier side, and how a community can present itself to the market. So SEI have some fantastic tools available to communities. They have a facility called Energy Master Planning. So once you actually certify your community as an entity and give it a geographic location, you're able to draw down on assistance and support to do an energy master plan, to understand not just the electrical energy consumed by the community is the total energy demand of the community, including transport, heating, and all fuel types. And that allows the development of a register of opportunities for that community, which may include kind of a large-scale solar or wind solution, or just individual opportunities across all of the businesses that you can create energy efficiencies or deploy distributed solar behind the meters. And that has been really successful. There's over 400 of those energy communities. The majority of them, from what I understand, have master plans completed, but it becomes grey after that because there's no follow-up. And it's quite hard for a not-for-profit, community-led, volunteer-driven entity to take the next steps, and that's really where Empower and the Irish project, the Irish pilot, is trying to assist. From a RES perspective, so there's RES, RES, and then there's RESS in Ireland, and then there's an RESSC for community, which is for community. So RESS is the Renewable Energy Support Scheme, which is basically an auction and an incentive for parties in Ireland to take on renewable assets for generation as opposed to fossil fuel-based assets. We're currently in Res 6, so the 6th version of that auction, and within that facility and that auction, the communities get put to the forefront of the queue and get given priority to deliver, to bring their projects and to get their projects. If you went back 3 years ago, a community project was described as a 51% shareholding by the community, and up to 49% shareholding by somebody else. And the benefit of that was you had industry were happy to partner with the community. On the back of Res 4 or Res 5, that changed, and the government changed it to 100% owned by the community, which created a huge burden on that community then to understand how to actually build a 5 megawatt, 10 megawatt solar farm or wind farm, how to energize it, how to get an off-taker, how to engage with the market, and how to operate and maintain it. So it really moved and shifted the expectations of what a community would have to do to get a community scheme over the line. And that is presenting large issues. There was over 100 joint community schemes came in on Res 4, and there's very few come through now in Res 6. There is prioritization, so they get put to the front of the queue from a planning perspective on the grid side and with the on the land planning side of things. and they're also given priority and a better fixed tariff for 15 years within the auction. So it's really good that you're able to get a guaranteed tariff, which really aids when you're looking at capital and actually putting together funding to build an asset. At the very beginning, there is now a support scheme available as well from SEAI. It's about 12 months old, where if a community does want to look at a solar farm or a renewable generation asset or a battery, there's a capability available from SEAI to look at feasibility, to do a high level analysis, whether there seems to be grid connectivity there or not, whether there's capacity there, and they bring them through from a technical point of view and do a high level amount of diligence as well. Really building the capacity and getting the board of this community, potential community development, savvy in what the process is going to look like when they get to a point where they're actually now having to turnkey a delivery of a solar farm or wind farm. So from an offtake, so let's say we've navigated the challenges of building a solar farm. We'll take one use case where we're over 5 megawatts at the moment. We have to find what's called an off-taker, so somebody to take a CPPA or a PPA and bring it out to market or bring it into their portfolio from a supply point of view. So there's a cutoff at around 5 megawatts where the current supply entities just aren't too interested below 5 megawatts in off-taking. And the reason for that is we have a lot of larger energy users that look for or anything over 5 megawatts in the system to do what's called a sleeve PPA, to be able to say, well, we've done a deal with said generator, and that generator is going to supply us with 10%, 20%, 100% of our energy consumption throughout the year. And the market really looks at the moment for contracts over 5 megawatts, and that limits the appetite for people to offtake any generation assets that are less than 5 megawatts in size. 5 megawatts of the solar farm is around 30 acres. It costs just over, we'd say, €6 million to build it. So it's a big ask for a community to fund, and it's also it's a large piece of land. There's a lot of capacity on the network, and there's a lot of commercial entities that will have already kind of hoovered up that grid capacity and the viable sites where it's cheap to build a connection into the network. So it's kind of, it leaves the smaller types of developments more costly to build and harder to sell back into the market.
Jonathan, we would need to skip some slides. So I don't
Absolutely.
know if you would like
Perfect.
to.
Yeah. So if you want to go
to
to the next one.
Which one?
Apologies. That's if you. So there's a lot of viability challenges. Less than 5 MVA. I think I've covered this. So we can go on to the next one. We also then on the consumer side have we don't actually have half-hour tariffs available to the consumer, which really limits the demand side opportunity that we have. Go next slide. There has been one community project which was successful about 12 years ago in Ireland, and none since. But there has been good socio-economic benefits with that. Next slide. And I suppose there's no mandate, and we can go on to the next slide on this one as well. The challenge we have is if I get a grid connection agreement, there's no use it or lose it clause. So we have a lot of people have grid connection agreements from previous auctions that haven't actually expired. So we have a lot of fat in the network that in the grid that isn't going to be built, but hasn't been re-released back to go into auctions or out to the communities to be able to leverage. So that's a big challenge for us. I think that's the last slide, is it? Apologies, no. So we have a number of regulatory restrictions, technical challenges, and the impact on community flexibility is the availability of the half-hourly tariff will be really beneficial there. Regulatory restrictions are the 100% owned community or nothing, and the technical challenges is the grid is actually quite blocked with offers that are not going to be taken by commercial entities, which communities may be very happy to take. That's it.
Thank you, Jonathan. We have one question. I'm going to read it loud now. It's from Kirova Monica. It says, can you please say again, what is the 15-year guarantee tariff for?
So within the RES auction, so the Renewable Energy Support Scheme auctions, the communities are given a guaranteed price per megawatt hour for 15 years off a large scale solar deployment or a wind or battery deployment. The rest of industry have to go in and have to compete, and it's the lowest offers basically to meet the capacity that wins. So in our last auction, I think it went to 106 euros per kilowatt hour or per megawatt hour for commercial. However, it's 115 euros per megawatt hour as far as I believe for renewable energy communities. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you very much. I think it does. And now we have another question. It says, how should you address communal players if you want to build a REC compatible to the mentioned 5 megawatt project?
Can you repeat it? Apologies, Oscar.
Sorry, maybe Tim, if you are there, you can read your question out loud. Otherwise, it's written in the chat.
Oh, it's in chat. Sorry, I was looking for it.
Sorry.
The other in the Q&A.
Do you understand me now?
How do you address
Yes, we
communal
can
players?
listen to you.
Oh yeah, perfect. Thank you for the presentation. We are applying at the moment for a renewable energy community comparable to your mentioned 5 megawatt project, and we have difficulties addressing the communal players and bringing all the important parties at one table. So I was wondering if you could delve into the project and how you managed to bring those parties together. Which talking points did you mention? Which incentives were you able to communicate to get all the people to agree to such a favorable project for all parties at the end?
Yeah, so it's a really good question and a very heavy question. The community set up their own board, and that with it's a voluntary board with the mind to, at some point in time when the community energy scheme becomes a legal entity, that it becomes the actual board of directors within the community or within the company. Their view is they're chasing down an EPC contract, so a turnkey contract from a supplier. And there are really good support available from SEAI for bringing them through that process from one of our government bodies. So there's a number of individuals who are well versed and engage from a consultative point of view and bring them through the overall process and their options. When it comes to the just past the viability of that project, at the initial viability study, when that's completed, there is an initial round of funding is required then to create a full due diligence pack and a planning pack to bring it through the standard grid connection process and through the RES process. So that's
Right.
That's kind of the process. Is yours within the jurisdiction of Ireland, or is it in a different?
In the jurisdiction of Germany, so we have I would say we are at the bottom of how developed everything concerning renewable energy communities is at the moment. So we have not yet a fully functioning law for renewable energy communities. And so now we try to apply for developing a business plan. And we already have a PV park project in sight that we could build, but the communal players or the communal owners of the parcels of land are not yet willing to lease us the land because it's 50% held by private people, 50% held by communal players. And so I was interested in how to get the communal players into the boat, but I think the
And are the
strategy
communal
to
players a council or
it's a city, it's a city council.
city council? Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, one idea that we had at a high level was to get them in on the far side as well. So it's very hard to get an off taker of that energy. However, if it adds to the county council in this case is carbon credentials that they can say they've offsetted the energy consumed in the water treatment plant for the town. Isn't that a great circular piece for the county council in this case? Something similar from an approach point of view from the communals might be, you know, kind of if you're giving them a priority of purchase and the opportunity to take that green energy locally, that might help.
All right, thank you very much.
And just to add to that answer, I would like to invite you to the third webinar because we're going to have the social engagement part of the project that we have together with the University of Basel and University of Cork, where they use different methods to engage the community in the energy community, but also in developing these tools. So you might find some ideas interesting also in the third session, which is the 23 of October. So now to continue. Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. Now to continue, we're going to make a little change of plans. Now we're going to present with the Spanish pilot, and it's going to be the turn for Nazaret and Esther to give us their input. So welcome, and the floor is yours.
Hello. Yeah, thank you, Oscar. Okay. Can I move the? Yes. Okay. Well, about the legal landscape in Spain, we have to say that we have the most important royal decree, that is the 244, that was made in 2019. This royal decree facilitate collective self-consumption and energy sharing. There was update also in the 20s, and with this royal decree we can do energy communities in Spain now. Well, in one of the things that they introduced as a stakeholder in the electric sector. After that, we have another royal decree that is making in 23. We transport the concept of the except from EU directive, but we have to say that the role of the aggregator is not defined in the current regulatory framework. The Spanish government has information of energy community in the Instituto para la Diversificación website in the following link, and you can find a lot of information about that. For example, one of the things that we can in the Spanish pilot, the regulatory law that make that is possible is this royal decree, the 244. Fortnite was be able to establish the collective self-consumption exempt, legally sharing the electricity generated among its members. What say this framework, or how can municipal official can use these frameworks? Well, can facilitate collective self-consumption, use royal decree to allow to neighbors and local business to legally share the energy produced within the municipality. Also, promote the renewable energy communities, apply royal decree to formally recognize groups of citizens and local actors as an energy community, giving them legal identity and access to funding opportunities. Another thing is that, secure fundings and technical support through IDAE, the institute that I told you before, programs and EU Baker funds officially can channel resources to make the project viable. Esther?
Thank you, Nazaret. Now it's going to be Esther
Yes.
who's presenting the next slide, I guess, no?
Yes.
Good.
Related to how... okay. Related to the barriers, only mention that peer-to-peer is not currently allowed in Spain. It's necessary to define full rules yet. And then direct peer-to-peer sales are restricted for this reason. And the part of the conception is not very clear. Related to the aggregator figure, is not allowed in Spain too. The role and the participation need to be defined. Also the innovation project in the future, we hope that the aggregator figure exists in Spain. Related to the collective self-consumption in energy communities, exists a distance restriction. The distance is about 2 kilometers radius for joining in the energy community. And the last barrier are administrative, and DSO is very similar. Is the complex and slow permitting and limited specific incentives. And related to the grid, the same grid connection timelines can delay the deployment in the energy community. More or less, this is all from our side.
Thank you very much. And if there's someone from Spain and they have some questions, you can also let us know. But because we're short in time, I'm going to go straight to the next speaker, who's going to talk about Austria's legal drivers for digital energy communities. So welcome, Elizabeth, and now you can present.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to present on Austria's legal drivers for digital energy communities on behalf of Blueprint Energy Solutions. I first wanted to get into the legal and regulatory framework. So Austria has a mature framework for energy communities, which is primarily supported by the Renewable Energy Expansion Act. This legislation defines the citizen energy communities and renewable energy communities and facilitates their establishment by enabling local generation, consumption, storage, and trading of renewable energy. Per the Renewable Energy Expansion Act, a renewable energy community is characterized by their regionality. Participants of a renewable energy community must be near one another, and there is a distinction between local and regional renewable energy communities. A local regional energy community is restricted more to low voltage networks, and they're more within short distances. And regional RECs are covered typically wider areas and include medium voltage as well. It is possible, among other things, to share electricity and heat within the community, but the energy generated must come from renewable sources. Per the Renewable Energy Expansion Act packet and the Electricity Industry Organization Act of 2010, citizen energy communities are allowed to generate electrical energy and consume, store, or sell the energy it generates itself. They may also provide energy services for its members, such as energy efficiency services or charging services for electric vehicles. The Electricity Industry and Organization Act of 2010 will be updated either later this year or sometime next year, and this will offer improvements and new possibilities for energy sharing. The Austrian government has also established a website known as the Central Coordination Unit for Energy Communities, which provides regulatory guidance and support for the energy communities. Next, I wanted to get into some examples of the impacts on the pilot. The peer-to-peer energy trading platform was first put into operation in 2019, which was obviously before the legal and regulatory framework was integrated into the Austrian law in 2021. It's based more on a traditional model of an energy supplier and offers additional services. The energy communities, according to the Clean Energy Package, were integrated into Austrian law in 2021. And therefore, the Energy Community Management Platform and the Nudging app will use this legal and regulatory framework. There were several adaptations of the national energy data management systems, which are mainly operated by the DSO. Even in 2025, we already have seen several changes to meet these new requirements. And below here, you can see changes that have been made between April 2019 and April 2025, including the citizen energy communities that have been updated to operate within one DSO network. Next, I wanted to get into how can municipal officials use the frameworks. For the peer-to-peer energy trading, which we've already briefly discussed, which has been used since 2019, can also be used by every citizen, legal entity, or municipal official, and they are typically under an annual energy matching system, and therefore they only need a contract which has to be signed, and a smart meter is not necessary. For the energy sharing models, which are on a quarter-hourly energy matching system, have several stipulations according to the Clean Energy Package. In Austria, every citizen or municipal official can establish and operate energy communities, although there are some legal entities that are not allowed. An energy community in Austria can be run completely voluntarily, and its members will then be supported by the Central Coordination Unit for Energy Communities. In order to operate an energy community, a legal entity and contracts are needed. However, we soon expect to have a new legal framework, which is the Austrian Electricity Market Act. And we hope that this will also make the legal entity no longer necessary. And with another advantage of the energy sharing model will be that there will be a closer production and consumption between all the participants, and therefore we expect also higher savings on grid fees, taxes, and levies. So here I just wanted to give a couple statistics on the current status in Austria, or as of August 2025. We currently have 2 peer-to-peer energy trading platforms, 3,800 community power plants, 4,600 renewable energy communities, and 850 citizen energy communities. And finally, I wanted to discuss a few of the challenges that we have in Austria. Firstly, being how to integrate energy storages into energy communities. So currently we have community energy storages, which buys the energy from producers to sell to consumers. However, this results in grid fees, taxes, and levies that count for both buying and selling, and therefore it counts double. And we hope that with this new framework that I previously discussed, that this portion will be revised. Secondly, how do energy communities affect the Austrian energy suppliers that need to fully supply all consumers? So we have the problem that forecasting for energy consumption is currently impossible if consumers participate in energy communities. And we just hope that these can both be solved in future regulations. And that's all for us. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And I think there's a comment in the chat. So it says, the central governmental coordination is only website-based, or delegated person may be contacted with regulatory technical questions by energy communities?
So it's a website where you can access it via a website, but they do have lots of forms documentation, and I believe also a portal where you can contact if you have any more specific questions.
Thank you very much. I hope this answers the question. And then if there's no other question, I will jump, because we're short on time, as I mentioned, to the next pilot. Is Joseph around? Are you there, Joseph?
Yes, of course, I'm here. Hi. Yes.
Perfect. Then, yeah, I think before you start, sorry, the session was scheduled until 12, but if participants could stay, I know, 5 or maybe 10 minutes more extra, that could be really good. Anyways, we're going to record the whole session and we will send it to you later. So yeah, thank you, Joseph.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm taking control of the presentation, and thank you. Thank you to all of you, and maybe just one sentence about this effort that we try to do here. The curtailment hours are really on the rise in Europe, and by 2040, this is gonna cost Europe a lot of money if we don't do things like energy communities, where we increase the flexibility of consumption and production patterns. So that's why this project is very, very important. And we represent the Hungarian pilot. Hungarian pilot is really a front runner in an also ran category, if I can state like this, because our country has all the legislative important legislative framework and all the important regulation at low level. So everything seems to be perfect. Everything is defined according to the EC law. But if you happen to do an energy community in practice, you are going to have obstacles, of course, because the detailed regulation is just not ready. So that I want to talk about this in these 5 minutes. In Hungary, the energy community can be an association, a cooperative, or a non-profit company, which can be a PLC or an LTD. So basically, there is a wide array of structures that energy communities can use. When it comes to details, because we have drafted several communities in Hungary, when it comes to those details, it's not that easy because you need to deal with very specific day-to-day operations and issues that you need to solve in the legal text of the community. There are two types, basically, renewable energy communities and condominium energy communities. Condo energy communities are not that important for us because the city where we operate is not a large city. So we deal with the renewable energy community. Renewable energy community, according to the law, can do basically everything. Produce, store, consume, share, aggregate, and do energy efficiency services even for citizens. Also, e-mobility service provider can be set up, and it can also operate charge points. So everything looks great in the text. However, when it comes to the details, I think there are several obstacles, and there are two types of obstacles. I don't want to talk about the market obstacles, of course, because they are the first and very important prerequisites of doing any services. So to have a good market and your service should be great for that as an energy community. You should really serve the market need. And what is the market need? The main market need is to have cheaper electricity and provide something back to the community, basically. These are the two things. And we struggle with the market conditions because the universal services are really heavily subsidized. And I may go to this slide because this is the most important slide because it really summarizes everything. So the universal services in Hungary are highly donated by the state. It means that citizen energy is something that's really not market based. This is a social policy by the government to provide cheap electricity to all citizens. Basically, regardless of, there are some limits, but those limits are very high in terms of yearly consumption. There are some limits, but these limits are really not that high. And it means that the market in terms of pricing is not ready for energy communities. However, we have a nascent energy community landscape, and we have 13 registered EC as of today in Hungary because we need to register energy communities. As all the elements of the energy regulated industry, we need to register. We need to go through a process of registration, which is, I think, great because then there is an overview by the market regulator how things work in an energy community. So there is this landscape. the EC is well defined in the regulation, as I mentioned. It's part of the electricity system, which is, by the way, a heavily regulated industry. So we need to really be see this part of the whole story, that energy is a heavily regulated industry. So we need to operate around these regulations, and we can't just do runarounds or do shortcuts. We need to comply. This is a non-profit entity in Hungary. It must be a non-profit entity. It can't be a for-profit entity. It doesn't mean that it can't do anything else than just non-profit activities. It can have some for-profit activities, but the overall company nature should be non-profit when it comes to LTDs. In association, this is a different story, of course, and in cooperative, that's also something that's really in nature more non-profit, and you can do any profit-oriented activity. Operation areas, I talked about it. You can do, according to the legal text, whatever you want. However, and this is the number 5 is maybe the most important thing, is that the high-level law doesn't appear to provide the details that are important to operate an energy community in practice. So if you want to do an energy community in practice, you should have those regulations that allow you to do so, because in principle everything looks fine. In a practical way, things are really not that good. And electricity sharing, which is our use case, it's impossible to share energy without electricity trader. This is our takeaway. At least our takeaway is that it's impossible to do so. Electricity traders, of course, when you apply an electricity trader, it's by definition not peer-to-peer, honestly. Second, there is a margin, of course, margin issue, one thing. Second is that it's a very small amount for a trader to do activities for an energy communities. If you see the energy flow in an energy community, a typical energy community, it's really not such a high level of energy. So therefore, we can't do the peer-to-peer trading. However, we can do some, and I skipped this slide because of the time. However, we will do a modeling, a peer-to-peer modeling, how things would look like without electricity trader in Békéscsaba, which is our pilot destination, a frontrunner municipality, by the way, really a frontrunner in Hungary. There was a government program for Modern Cities program, which was very successful. Békéscsaba, this city, tried to focus on energy, and right now the whole energy system is really revised, and now they have a really one of the best energy systems. But when it comes to attracting citizens to a municipality-driven energy community, there are obstacles. So first, and these are 4 obstacles, and then maybe I will go to the last slide, but these are important. So DSO terms and conditions. DSO terms and conditions are important because energy sharing should be stipulated in those terms and conditions, and this is not the case as of now. The second obstacle is that the universal services which provides a very favorable energy price for the citizens are very good for the citizens, for us, but it's an obstacle for any energy community related peer-to-peer trading activity. So this is the case as of now. If we could partially go out from the universal services system, so basically opting out, but not totally, but for example, in the hours where the electricity price is below 30 euro per megawatt hour in Hungary, which happens, of course, sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's 300. It would make a difference, because then the whole peer-to-peer trading would make sense for energy communities in those hours where the electricity price is below the subsidized price. because the subsidized price is a set price, is a flat rate. Therefore, it could really make a difference. What we will do in Békés Csaba, we will do this modeling, how things would look like with peer-to-peer trading system, and where is the break-even. So basically, the model that we built here will be applicable to other energy communities, because we will see exactly at which market price conditions will a peer-to-peer trading break even for energy communities. And sorry if I'm a little bit too economical. I have this financial viewpoint because I'm a finance expert too. And but if you want to build scale, you need to have a viable business model. If you have a viable business model, then you can attract investors from the citizens landscape, but also from third-party investors to invest and to scale up local energy systems. So this is our takeaway. And if you have any question, I'm really here.
Thank you very much, Joseph. So we are about to finish the session, but we still have one pilot more. I will take control of the slides
Yes,
again.
please.
And yes, last but not least, and sorry, so sorry for the delay. I see some people unfortunately need to leave, but we have now the Greek pilot, and they will share with us a bit of their story. So thank you, Tatiani.
Hello from me.
Yes. Yes.
Hi, I'm Tanya. I work for GEAS, which is a Greek aggregator for renewable energy sources in Greece. And here in the projects, we are responsible for the Greek pilot, which we had the workshop 2 weeks ago, and we have visited Halki. So I will tell you a little bit about my story. Is not my background. It's not regarding legal and the regulatory framework, but I can tell you a little bit about the legal and the regulatory framework in Greece. But I think the project here, they have chosen let's say a person that it is not a very favor of the legal and the regulatory framework here. So I will be on the side that it's not in the favor of this, because, and I will explain myself. Of course, the energy communities were established to address the energy poverty and to develop the renewable energy sources and invest of them. But in Greece in general, there is a drawback, and this drawback creates two main effects: bureaucracy and speculation. So even this framework was established, the incentives were gradually phased out, and some of them stopped completely during the years, or some investors took the initiative, private investors, I mean, took initiative to invest in energy communities, which actually, through this framework, which actually are not energy communities, but they are companies that name them through the legal framework energy communities, but without people inside. So go to the next slide. Of course, Halki and our pilot, it is a real energy community trying to work and do good for the people there, and however has the difficulties and the barriers of the regulator framework in Greece. In the beginning, in the project, we have said we have mentioned something about V2G charger installation. This cannot be done in Halki because there is no current framework in Greece for that. There is some initiation in Greece in general, not for Halki. There is some initiation, some R&D projects and processes, but still there is a lot of work to be done. So it cannot be expected at least in the following years. So it cannot be done during ENPOWER project and the timeline of ENPOWER project. And after a lot of effort, we were able to install some energy meters in Halki Island. Of course, it was a very, very difficult procedure, but at least we were in order to we were happy to succeed this with the help of the municipality there, where in contrast to, I think, Spain or Portugal said that the municipality cannot participate in the energy community. I'm not sure. One of those two said that they are not allowed to participate in the energy communities. Greece can participate anyway, in the municipality can participate in the energy community. So all of them achieve it. Now we can say that then there is a lot of work to be done, as I said, and a lot of things to be done. And a lot of work. I don't and that's it. I will not add something more on this. I will be quick.
Thank you very much. And very appreciated because we are going to the end of the session. So thank you so much for the people who stayed. We are finishing the session today. I know it extended for other, let's say 15 minutes. So we're very sorry for that. We're going to make the recording available as the first recording is already available and you can find it in that link. And we're going to share also the slides and just be aware that we're going to have webinar 3 and 4 in 2 weeks. No, so next week we're going to pause the leadership program and then we're going to come back with the two session. But today and before closing, I wanted to invite you to a special event. We're going to be present in the European Week of Regions and Cities that is happening, yes, next week. This is a different session. This is not going to be part of leadership program because it's going to be an open debate. There are going to be experts from other organizations. And it's going to be a really interesting event. We are going to have it on site. So if you're in Brussels, you are most welcome to join us. The registration is in that link. We're going to share it later, but also online participation would be possible. So we are looking forward to have you also in this session to learn more about how digital tools can foster inclusivity in the energy transition for energy communities. So that's it from my side. Thank you so much for joining today. And see you soon. Goodbye.
Thank you too. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Goodbye.